Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It's another epi of League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you guys for a little bit of LCK, LPL recap, and more importantly, I'm going to put air quotes, drama surrounding the LEC playoff bracket. We know it's going to be a week off until they play. Once things wrapped up, initially, we had Vitality versus Koi kicking things off, then G2 KC on the Sunday, and then the winners of those two matchups would play on the Monday, which gave Vitality, the number one seed from the regular season, a day off in between after having already had 2+ weeks off, by the way. But then the schedule gets rejigged because the owner of KC is doing a soccer streaming event on the Saturday, and they haven't explicitly said this, but it's 100% why this is. So he couldn't be co-streaming the KC match, so the LEC says, don't worry, buddy, we got you. You can play on the Sunday. Doesn't really matter that Vitality, as the top seed, now does not have the advantageous scheduling.
Oh, this is completely unacceptable and a generational fumble, I truly believe, by the LEC in this type of moment. Because this is going to be something that, sure, for some people gets swept under the rug. It doesn't matter, whatever, doesn't reach the radar. But I think for a lot of people, and a lot of the people that are heavily invested into the actual competitive side of this league and what it can bring out, seeing something like this where it just simply is not acknowledging or respecting what a team has done and accomplished and what they deserve to have as a priority as the number one seed throughout these playoffs, in favor of chasing the viewership numbers, respecting that and whatever, playing into Kameto's hands. It is unbelievable that this is what it's going to be, but I think it's one of those ones where, yeah, it doesn't take a real genius or someone who's been studying around or knows all the factors around the league to connect the dots and see that is exactly why this is coming through. And to me, unacceptable that is the reasoning. It's one of those ones where you can envision, you can see why you would want to make a choice like that, or it would be preferential for whatever type of reasons. But you would hope or pray that you would understand that the competitive integrity of this region, of what you are setting out for, is at stake if you are doing something like that. So to me, this is maybe one of those things that can be looked at as a smaller issue or an issue that people won't care about. But to me individually, I care about this one a lot, and this one hits the wrong way for the LEC.
And, it's especially bad. You had somebody like Linces kind of commenting on this because I forget the exact wording, so I'm going to paraphrase. But the LEC said the change is to accommodate team schedules and stuff. And Linces basically like, well, I guess nobody asked Vitality, or that's not accommodating them, which 100% is fair. And I know people will say, well, last year's spring, this was a similar scenario. KC was the top seed from the regular season, and they would have had to play back-to-back days, but they lost that opening round to MKOI. And here's why this is different this year, is because it was set up so that Vitality would not have to do that, and then you change it into that less than ideal scenario, which is a totally different look than that being the schedule from the get-go.
And again, to do it from simply a perspective of chasing the viewership numbers, looking for more money, advertising, whatever, all these things to come bolster the broadcast numbers in favor of sticking to the established plan and the plan that was supposed to do right by who has accomplished becoming the first seed. And you abandoned that in favor of playing towards Karmine Corp, in favor of playing towards the fandoms that you want to have to bolster these numbers. And it's, again, understandable from that production standpoint. But it is one of those ones where that point gets triumphed, gets countered immediately by the importance of maintaining the integrity of what you have stood out for here in the competitive structure. And to go against that as the LEC, again, just chasing viewership numbers, playing towards Kameto, I am not a fan of seeing that come through.
And, this now combined with what we already got with the road shows, you really see how much power the bigger orgs that draw fans and draw the viewership numbers, how much power they have within the league. And if I'm squads like Vitality and even lower down the rung of LEC squads, I'm looking going, do you even care about us? Is this just the KCG2 MCOY League?
And I would be absolutely furious if I'm any of those squads, and even more so if I'm any of these squads. Which let's face it, there are these type of squads in the LEC that are lower down the rankings of the totem pole as far as importance, as far as viewership numbers, and everything else that comes into this equation. That is now apparently more important than the competitive integrity than what you have earned by being the #1 seed in the LEC. If you're any of these squads like SK, do you think you've got any more of a shot of holding the LEC to this type of scheduling or to be maintaining that integrity compared to someone like Vitality, who has star players, known commodities within this league, and is a known organization, just stuck outside that top tier of everybody else, but then come to realize if you're not in that top tier, well, screw it. We got a soccer game for this guy on the Saturday, so yeah, you're going to get bounced. That is baloney garbage from a professional organization trying to run a league like this. And I think the LEC deservedly should be called out on it.
I think because it is a franchising model is why this is an issue. Theoretically, I know teams have paid different amounts throughout the years to be in the league, but theoretically, everyone's paying the same amount to have an organization represented, and it is obviously heavily skewed the level of influence that these teams have had, despite paying the same amount to have a spot in there. So, I mean, maybe Vitality loses against MCOY in the first round and it has no implications whatsoever, but it's still the ideology behind it that is the bigger issue, and hopefully something that the other LEC teams are more outspoken about going forward in 2026 and beyond. We did have less bit of drama, actual games on the Rift, the LCK. I gotta tell you, there's like 3 weeks left in the regular season in the LCK. This is too long compared to the other leagues. I gotta watch Gen G murder BFX, get Chovy another pentakill. I gotta watch more games of this. Just get us to playoffs, man.
I don't know who was cooking up this idea in the LCK. Again, going back to some of the hits, yeah, we're gonna do the Rise Fries group. Yep. All these type of things, carry it over. Yep. And we're going to run playoffs about 3 weeks after everybody else is getting geared up for playoffs in this situation. Very crazy, and again, is leading to kind of a situation like this where it feels meaningless almost from both sides, even though the results are not. And we are heading towards, though, a situation where the only things that do seem to matter or do seem to register are the marquee matchups on the schedule, and that is what is heading up for this weekend with Gen G and T1, both of them looking good, and Gen G continuing their form, picking up a win against BFX, earlier today.
Yeah, both of them kind of on the up and up, which is good to see before that big head-to-head. And I know this playoff road to MSI is going to be, it's basically a week long. It's going to be much shorter than the other regions' playoffs, and that's why this is kind of an extended regular season. But it just feels like there's only 3 or 4 matchups that are actually going to matter in the LCK. So when you go days and weeks in between actually having them, it, takes away a little bit of the drama. That doesn't mean KT and KRX doesn't give a little bit of drama, though, as KT barely squeak out a win and remain shaky at best, and I did not get any more confidence from them by snaking through a Game 3 win against Kiwoom DRX.
This is one of those rare instances where you are not gaining anything by winning, you are maintaining your spot. That is simply the only movement that happens in this one from KT, hanging on in this one. I think there is absolutely angles to maybe... Again, if you were feeling better about KT, this could be something that could pump the tires of Kiwoom DRX at that situation. But because of the way things have played out, it is more so just okay, take a breath, KT. You survive another day and you're hanging out in this type of area still, but it needs to see that spark of fire, of improvement, of bounce back within this team to consider them any further within the LCK.
This wasn't enough of a confidence boost for you that they're going to 2-0 Hanwha Life now over the weekend?
No, I don't see that coming, and especially some of the mistakes that we did see within this series all over the board in this one. I think that very much so. The form of Hanwha Life, and especially the monster that Zeka has been in this second split, it's gonna tear and chomp right its way through this KT squad.
Even the Atlas cosplay that BDD has done, and I don't mean Atlas, the LCK caster. I mean holding up the entire Earth of KT roster. Probably not going to be enough against this version of both Hanwha Life and what KT is putting down on the Rift. Just when things look to be sorting itself out in the LPL, we get a Weibo grenade to wrap up their regular season, to just throw a wrench again, as JDG was climbing to be that main contender to BLG. I'm not going to say throw up a dud, because Weibo did put up a good performance, and still, all these years later, when we get these JJ Junjia matchups, it's still JJ going, remember why I was the starter on that EDG World Championship, buddy.
Oh man, it's crazy that you can have so much fluctuation outside of all these matches, but you get that head-to-head between these two. It does seem to always play out to that whatever degree you want to measure it, that edge, that advantage is on the side of JJ and what he has done and why he was the starter on that EDG team. You're rightfully pointing out. This is one of those ones where, yeah, the Weibo hand grenade is true, because this was one of those things where you felt pretty confident in where JDG was going to position themselves right before playoffs. And here is the Weibo hand grenade that destroys that and dismantles everything that you had been expecting in the LPL, because now this raises Weibo up a little bit. You still are very wary and cautious about truly investing or believing in them as one of the top options in the LPL. But it very much so puts them at that conversation point for that dark horse, for the team that can make one of these runs to the lower bracket. And frankly, they are absolutely primed for it, for whoever they're going to face in the lower bracket, because let me tell you, there are some real ugly records in the LPL that are going to be included in this lower bracket type of run. So for a squad like Weibo, getting this one in a head-to-head is absolutely one of those things that can put you into a good path for that lower bracket run.
Yeah, and they're obviously still unable to finish top 4, so they're not going to get a bye right to the bracket. They'll have to go through that play-in stage and play some of the Nirvana groups who are going to be pushing up. But if the LPL bracket, there's a precedent for these squads that are playing extra matches and have to warm up, and then boom, you get an upset against an AL, TES, or a JDG, who, by the way, have a 3-way tie at 8-5 to go for that second seed. But BLG, by the way, 2 games this weekend starting on Friday. They play both top esports and anyone's legend.
This is a big weekend for BLG, and it's one of those ones of, can you keep everybody else down type of situation, because BLG again is still hovering around, maintaining their position around that top squad of the LPL. But can you push yourself again out of the conversation of just top of the LPL into that conversation of, well, you're the top in the world again, right? Remembering how things played out at first stand. That is going to be a big thing, and getting these type of marquee wins against the other top contending teams in the LPL back to back on the weekend. Yeah, this is a big one for BLG.
Heavy hitters for them, some heavy hitters, obviously the T1 Gen G as well, and Hanwha also playing D+ and KT. So should be a spicy little weekend of action across the globe. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you, gorgeous individuals. Thanks so much for the support. As always, we'll catch you on that flippity flip.